I tell you about the game Safranito, I want to quickly show you the components, because this is what makes this game special, really. So initially we have this board here. It's a really thick board with lavish illustrations, and it has a ridge going around it, so we've got this slight edge here. And the board, when it's laid down like this here, it's in two pieces, so we end up with a really a rather large and beautifully illustrated board. These lock into place like this on both sides, and so what we end up with is this stunning sort of large board with a picture of different types of spices on it. And the game comes with a bunch of cards which represent these different spices. So we've got chilies, and we've got turmeric and saffron, and you know, all these different types of spices. And we're going to be aiming towards completing certain objectives. So we'll have little menus that we have to complete by mixing these different spices. And the way that we're going to get these spices, and this is the really unique thing about the game, is like this. What I'm doing, I'm throwing these poker chips and I'm trying to get them to land in these spaces. The poker chips have different values on them. So we've got 20s and 10s, and essentially for each colour we've got 10, 20 and up to 60 essentially. And these chips are really quite remarkable. I mean, if we take a look at a normal poker set over here, so a standard sort of poker set with nice thick chips, these are exactly the same thickness and size as a normal poker chip. So they really are of very high quality, and that's something that's quite unique about this game. The hole in the middle is essential because this is what tells us whether it is in or out. What we do is we have a look, and we look down and we see if we can see the line here. So if it's like this, that's not in. If it's like this, that's definitely claimed this cumin seed. And that is the core of the game. Safranito by Marco Teubner is not a particularly well-known game. I haven't seen many people talking about it. I happened to pick it up because I saw it in the Hot Deals forum on Board Game Geek, and I got it off the German Amazon site at a really, really good price, especially considering all the fantastic components in it. And I haven't been disappointed with the purchase at all. It's a lot of fun. It creates a lot of laughs throwing those discs around, and it's unlike anything else that I've got. Plus, it's just beautifully illustrated, and that's a real selling point for me. So let's have a little talk about the instructions and the way that it plays, and then I'll let you know what I think of the game. Around the edge of the board, we have spice cards placed in these various locations. So here we have ginger, and then up here we've got cardamom, and you'll notice there's 2 cards up there as opposed to 1 chili, and there's no garlic cards. This is all based on the layout as that we place at the beginning of the game, and we're going to restock these cards each turn after each round. What we're trying to do with those cards, we're trying to claim them by buying them with money. We've got paper money, so we all start with a certain amount of this, and we do that by throwing the chips, the poker chips, onto the board to set the prices. And what we're trying to do with these spice cards is complete these various spice blends. There are always 3 available to all players. Certainly in a 4-player game there are 3. Some players may have one of these secretly in their hand as well, which they can also work towards. The turn sequence, the way that it works, is that players are going to throw these poker chips, skim them onto the board. There are rules about how far away you can throw them from. You can't sort of put your hand here and chuck it from there. It has to be from off the board. But basically in your turn you throw one on and you take it in turns. You're trying to claim these different spaces by chucking on these chips, and so we go round in turn. A good move would be to try and knock another chip out of the way so that you can claim the space. You can also try and claim these different spaces around here which have different actions, which I'll talk about in a moment. But essentially we carry on like this, you know, and eventually you'll have all of these chips on the board. We then analyze the board. We go around initially looking at these little actions here. So if a chip was sitting on here, then that would allow this green player to throw an additional chip onto the board, again trying to get it into the space that they want. If we got landed on this space here, then the player would get a selection of spice cards to choose from, and that the number that they get would be based on the value. They're not going to get 50, but you know, the number would be based on the value, so they'd get 5 here to choose from. If they were on there. On this space up here, they're going to get to claim the starting player marker, which is this pepper mill here. On this space here, they get their own secret spice blend to work towards, which is an objective to work towards, which the other players aren't aware of, so they don't know what they're actually working towards. And then, once we've done all of that, we go round and we evaluate each individual space. So for example, this saffron here, we turn the chip over, we now know that this saffron is currently worth 20, and players can now sell off any saffron that they have in their hand at the cost of 20 rather. So I could, if I had this in my hand, I could discard this card, I'd get 20 money. Now the objective of this game is not to claim money. Money is only useful for buying more spice cards, which are going to help you to complete those spice blends, those objectives. So once we've done all the selling, then we can start buying. The guy who sold, he can't buy, so there's not going to be any saffron being bought, but there may be ginger being bought over here. So if these were both on the tile, we'd turn them over. We've got a 10 and a 40. So initially, the guy who played the 40, who landed that in there, he would get to buy first, but it's going to cost him 40 to buy a ginger. So he buys a ginger card. The guy here, he can now buy a ginger card for 10. But because this guy's bought first, we've run out of ginger cards around the edge of the board, so he goes without. So a lot of the game is about judging how high a chip do I throw on there, as well as the dexterity of actually managing to get it into the right place and keep it there without other players knocking it out with their own chips. So we're going to be buying these spice cards, we're going to be using them to complete these objective cards, and then the first player to complete 3 of these objectives is going to win the game. Safranito is a unique game. It's a fun experience. There's lots of laughter, there's lots of opportunities for people to try and knock other players out, to spot what they think other people are doing and try and undo it. Lots of those satisfying moments where you can knock a chip away and off the board. When I've played this game, I've often found that players will get quite mean with it. They might focus on preventing another player, and there's lots of, oh, you're always aiming for me. There's a lot of that going on. It feels like a party game, and so everything doesn't quite sort of gel together beautifully. So I'm not saying that this is any sort of masterpiece, but it is fantastic. The artistry that's gone into it, it's so beautiful to look at, so tactile. The components are, the quality is out of this world. So it's got a hell of a lot going for it, even though the mechanics feel a bit odd. It feels like it should have more players than just 4, and I'm sure that the limitation is because of the cost of the components, but it really does feel like it could go up to 6 and that we could get a few more chips on there. That would make everything just that bit more frantic, that bit more fun, you know, because it feels like a party game. The rules are simple, it's easy to explain, it's accessible, it's the sort of game where other people are going to come over and go, what are you playing? You know, can I join in? And so that's always nice. It's a game that other people won't necessarily have heard of, so it's got that sort of novelty factor to it. If you can get a hold of a copy at a decent price, I'd say definitely pick up Safranito. I wouldn't go hunting for it. I wouldn't pay a fortune for it. But as an oddity, as a nice change and something refreshing, when there's all these other games, you know, which a lot of them are very similar or feel very similar. It's not like anything else. So that's Safranito.